about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free with Now looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Jim here at 222 HQ, welcoming you to our latest A-Level Geography live revision blast. And after a few weeks of physical geography, or Fizzy as I hear it's called, you might be able to confirm that, Suzanne and Abdurrahman.
Definitely.
We're back to what I understand is proper geography. What I was hearing earlier. That might be a contentious viewpoint. I couldn't possibly comment, but we are back with the first of two sessions, I think, on contemporary urban environments. And welcome to the many people joining us. Just looking at the live chat here, lots and lots of students joining us live. But the analytics suggest that 20, 30, 40, 50 times as many students catch us on replay and catch up over the sort of following hours and days. So a warm welcome to you as well. Same format as normal. We've got a variety of revision activities for you to have a go at. If you're in a live session, you get a chance to type your answer into the chat. Maybe it's a multiple choice question, or maybe it's an answer that Suzanne and Abdurrahman are looking for. If you're watching on catch up, you get a chance to press pause and that all important extra time that you can have if you wish to think about your responses. But however you want to use the session, you're more than welcome to join us. Abdurrahman, do you want to give us a flavour for what tonight's session is all about, and then we'll crack on?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jim. Today we're doing the starting half of contemporary urban environments, which is obviously one of the optional modules and one of the most popular. So I hope a lot of you in here do study it and will find this useful. As Jim said, we'd really appreciate you in the chat trying to get involved as often as possible, because that really sort of amps it up, and it is really helpful to us to hear your feedback.
Brilliant stuff. Right, looking forward to it. So we'll make a start, shall we? Off we go.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with some multiple choice questions. So in the chat, please tell me the answers to the following questions. So urbanization is A, the increase in the total population of a town or city. B, the increase in size or geographical footprint of a city. C, the increase in the proportion of people living in towns and cities. Or D, the population movement from rural back to urban areas. So start telling me in the chat, please. Thank you to Mia for being the first in. Sorry, Katie and Leo before Mia. Well done. And yeah, we've got this one right straight away. Thank you to you three. Yeah, let's have the answer, Jim. Yeah, it was C, the increase in proportion of people living in towns and cities. And this is a really important definition. And there's a reason why A, B were there to sort of trick you guys, but clearly you are very, very engaged today. So let's go for number 2. What area within a city is most likely to suffer from deindustrialization? A, inner city. B, the suburbs. C, the central business district. Or D, the rural urban fringe. So have a think about which area is going to suffer the most from deindustrialization. Let's get your answers in the chat, please. Thanks, Leo. So is it, which of these following locations is it? Any more other than Leo? All right, let's have it, Jim. It is, of course, the inner city of so many of UK cities. So, for example, London, Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester, etc., were absolutely gutted by deindustrialization and all the impacts, which I'm sure you've studied. Let's go for the next. Urban sprawl refers to A, the increase in the proportion of people living in towns and cities. B, the largely unplanned and uncontrolled low-density expansion of a city. The increase in the total population of a town or city. Or D, the largely unplanned and uncontrolled low-density expansion of a village. 2 quite lengthy answers in here, but let's have a go. Thanks, Leo, for being the first in. Remember, this is about contemporary urban environments, so 1 is clearly going to be wrong. Thank you to both Mias there. Yeah, let's have the answer then, Jim. It was, of course, B. The main difference between B and D there, obviously being that last word, and clearly city was correct. Let's go for the 4th then. Urban resurgence, which is a very important process you need to learn about, is a term used to describe A, population movement from rural to other rural areas. B, population movement from rural back to urban areas. C, the increase in size or geographical footprint of a city. Or D, population movement from urban back to rural areas. So let's have answers for this in the chat. Got more and more people this time around. The first question was 2 or 3 people. Now we've got consistently 5. So well done. Let's have the answer then, Jim. I think they've done pretty well here. Yes, it is definitely the movement of people from rural areas back to urban areas. And usually those are urban areas that have actually suffered from deindustrialization. But through urban resurgence, they've now become more attractive places to live. Let's go for the final question. Yeah. London is a world city. They are interconnected global economic centers that have significant influence on the world economy. B, cities with a population exceeding 10 million. C, interconnected global economic centers with a very high population. Or D, cities with a population exceeding 1 million residents. Got a bit of a mix this time around. So some people have gone for one answer, but one seems to be a lot more popular. Thank you again to Katie, Leo, and both Mias. Yeah, let's have the answer then, Jim. It was, of course, A. Remember, world city, aside other than megacity, has nothing to do with population. So world cities range in size. What matters is their economic and sometimes cultural and political importance. Right, on to the next one then, Jim. Okay. So I'll hand to you this one, Suzanne.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry, we've got a great couple of pictures for you now to have a look at. So the first one there, have a look at those images and decide which of these locations you think shows a typical suburban area in a UK city. So have a look at A and the features there, B, C and D, and have a think. What would a typical suburban area in a UK city look like? Fantastic. We've got one strong answer coming through quickly. Oh, yes, and a stream of them now. Fantastic. Thank you. Right, Jim, could we have the reveal? It is indeed B. You can see those are 1930s semi-detached housing, very common on the sort of outskirts of UK cities. Right, question number 2, another picture. So this is about postmodern Western cities. So which of these locations shown do you think shows features of a typical postmodern Western city? Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Or is it D? Let's have a think about what postmodern Western city ought to have in it, what the characteristics are. And well done, Katie. I've got one through straight away. Brilliant. Oh, and another stream of the right answer. Okay, so could we have the reveal, please? It is indeed A. That's actually Vancouver. So, and it exhibits lots of different features of a postmodern Western city. Right, question number 3, I think, is our final picture. Right, so this is, if you have a look at these 3 different urban settlements, think about which one appears to have been most impacted by physical factors. Now, that also links to aspects of your changing places compulsory topic when you were looking at endogenous factors. So decide, is it A, B, C, or D? Right, I've got a few coming through. Brilliant. Again, lots of correct answers. Could we have the reveal, please? Thank you. It is C, and that's actually in New York. So we've obviously got the fact that the water is constricting the further growth, so they've had to actually build upwards. Right, on to the next question, please. Right, so this one, what I'd like you to do in 30 seconds is just try to outline what you think is meant by the concept of the postmodern Western city. Now, obviously, you just had a clue earlier of what one looked like, so you might begin to be able to think about what some of the key features might be. So can I have the 30 seconds starting now, please? And pop your answers in chat or write them down on your piece of paper if you're watching afterwards. Great. Okay, well, really good to see a couple of those answers in chat, and I hope if you're watching afterwards you have managed to pop a few things down, or maybe even pause if you wanted to give yourself a little bit longer. And if we can have the reveal. Okay, so the concept is about architectural, cultural and social changes in the late 20th century, which has affected some urban areas in parts of North America and Western Europe. Now, it tells you their postmodern Western cities are characterized by eclectic architecture inspired by a whole variety of different artistic, cultural, and historical influences. Now, they also can demonstrate quite high levels of fragmentation and patchwork of those urban land uses. And along with that, often becomes a high degree of social polarization. So there is a really wide gulf between the very rich in postmodern Western cities and the very poor. You might have studied some examples as well. So Los Angeles is one. You might have had a look at Las Vegas. And often our UK example, although not a city, is Milton Keynes, which is a new town. And it actually demonstrates some of those elements of postmodernism, particularly with its statement architecture. But as I said, it's actually a town and not a city. Right, can we have the next question, please? So another 30-second challenge. Can you please outline reasons for the emergence of megacities? Okay, so if we can start with 30 seconds. Fantastic. Right. Could I please have the answer to this question? Thank you. Right. So here it comes. So the reason for the emergence of these megacities, and remember, megacities are cities of over 10 million people, it's often due to historical waves of rural to urban migration. So really high rates of people moving from those rural areas into the urban areas. And it says there specifically to hub locations. Now, an example you might have studied could be Lagos in Nigeria. Now, through rural to urban migration and natural increase, it's actually at the moment increasing its population at a rate of 85 people per hour, which is quite mind-blowing. And actually less than 1 million people lived there in 1960, so less than 1 million, and by 2020, only 60 years later, that had risen to a huge 21 million. Absolutely enormous. Right, and secondly, it can also the reason for the emergence of megacities can be through government policy. So China particularly set up special economic zones in the late 1970s, and has led to the growth of many large cities. So Shenzhen might be an example that you've looked at, which is now home to a company, a TNC called Foxconn, which produces Apple products. So some of you might have looked at that in your global systems and global governance unit as well. And that city actually rose from 59,000 people in 1980, so 59,000, pretty tiny, almost really a town, and is now 12.6 million people today. So it's increased over 200 times. Right, I think that is my questions done for the moment. So over to Abdurrahman for your picture grid.
Thanks, Suzanne. So for those of you who don't know, the picture grid works as follows. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, 6 in total, and for every single time that you get something correct, it will reveal a part of a bigger picture. Now, I want you to not only try and answer the questions, but also bit by bit, try and see if you can have a go at guessing the image that is behind. So let's have the first question then. A term given to an area that has been built on before, but is now unused and available for redevelopment. So this key term comes in sort of like a pair, and both being sort of opposites of each other. Thank you, Katie, for coming in first. See if we can get some more. Thank you, Mia. Yeah, it is, of course. Let's have it, Jim. A brownfield site. Well done. There, and now we're going to get our first bit of the picture. Okay. This is a bit of a gap fill. There are economic, social, blank, beginning with a T, political and blank, beginning with a D, processes associated with urbanization and urban growth. So what is that T word and what is that D word? I think you probably misspelt something there, Katie. I think you were pretty close there. One beginning with T and one beginning with D. Yes, you certainly have the second one correct. Well done. Anyone else want to come in here? Thank you, Katie. Second one really closely links to changing places and would be an endogenous factor. Yeah, thank you, Mia. Let's have it then, Jim. So technological and demographic. So let's now reveal another part of the image. Okay, great. What is the existence of a variety of cultural or ethnic groups within a city or society called? You study this in contemporary urban environments as it having spatial patterns, but also causing issues as well. So what is that called? Thank you, Leo. Man, that was close. Yeah, thank you, man. Well done. Yeah, well corrected. Yeah, thank you, Laurie. Yeah, let's have that answer then, Jim. It was, of course, cultural diversity, which is one of 3 things that you look at in terms of its spread alongside economic inequalities and social segregation. Let's have the next one then. See if you can start maybe guessing the picture. I know it's not the clearest so far, but see if you can have a go. You're clearly on a road. Okay, areas within a city that use walls, guarded entrances, and security firms to defend themselves are known as what? Thanks again, Katie. Well done, Laurie. Yeah, it is, of course, fortress landscape. So we can have the answer there. Thank you, Jim. Another part of the image now revealed. Modern suburban areas that act as an alternative central business district, including shops, offices, and entertainment, are called what? Another type of urban form. What are these called? They have a mix. People live there, people work there, people go to and do activities there, like sport or going to the cinema. What are these areas called? Yeah, very close. Yeah, thanks, Katie. Yeah, you've just missed one word out there, so let's have the full answer then. Jim? Yeah, so then, yeah, that's what we got. So we've got edge cities there. And then the final bit is going to now be revealed, or the second to last bit. Great. So I think it's pretty much given away there. Let's go for a nice and easy one to end with. What are megacities, everybody? What are megacities? Just give me a brief definition. If anyone can guess what's on the image, I'd be really, really impressed. Yeah, thank you, Laurie. Thank you, man. And let's have a guess at the image then. Think about what this is showing. Thanks, Jim. So now we can see the full image. Let's have some guesses as to what this image is showing. Some of you may have studied this in relation to the City of London as a way of reducing pollution in the city, pollution via vehicles. Anyone want to have a go here? This is one of the strategies used in London. Okay, right, let's give it to them, Jim. I think they're struggling with this one. It's a cycleway in London, which is part of the city's pollution reduction policies. Okay, let's go on to the next activity. Okay, this is a big reveal. At the end of the fifth clue, you're going to want to guess what this idea or concept or thing is, and every single time it should become a little bit easier, but feel free to start guessing right from the very first clue. So let's have that, Jim. Thank you. So these are sites of cultural consumption, people going to shows, for example, visiting venues or galleries. Let's have the second clue. There is some focus, some of them focus more upon historical uniqueness of areas. So they exploit the fact that there is a rich history in the area. Let's have the third clue. Let's get some guesses coming in, please, everyone in the chat. Osborne Valley in Newcastle is an excellent example, as it includes art galleries such as the Biscuit Factory and local breweries such as the Tyne Bank Brewery. This is on the same category as what you looked at before, which are edge cities and fortress landscapes. So it's one of these. Very close there, Aman. You're sort of along the right lines. Let's have the next clue. They are linked with and sometimes contribute to urban resurgence, especially in formerly derelict areas. So they contribute to the city becoming a lot more attractive to live in and a lot more entertaining. Thank you, Mia. Let's have that final clue. Someone's got it. Great stuff. The historic center of the old city of Barcelona is another good example. It is known as the Gothic Quarter. So you've had 5 clues. Anyone else want to come in with an answer here before we reveal? Thank you to Mia. Anybody else? Okay, right. Let's have the answer then. Mia, you were bang on. Well done. These are cultural and heritage quarters, which are areas within a city that are especially marketed as having a rich culture and a rich history. Right, let's go on to the next activity. Okay, so the following phrases are called altered vowels. So each of the key phrases shown have the vowels changed to an alternative vowel. Can you work out the key phrase? I believe there are 3 in total, so let's have the first one, Jim. Okay, what's this? Give you a bit of a clue. This is a process that occurs in cities. It's occurred in many, many areas of London and completely turned areas around. Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you, Leo. Let's reveal it, Jim. It is, of course, gentrification, a term coined by a woman named Ruth Glass, and that has really, really changed the character and the look and the feel of so many areas in London, but also around the world. Let's have the next one. Okay, what's this? Remember, the vowels have been swapped around, so it's not going to look exactly the same. This is a feature of a post-industrial economy. It really dominates in the UK, for example, with jobs such as banking, but also people who might work, for example, at a gym. Yeah, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Leo, Aman, and Tamir. Well done. Let's reveal this, Jim. Yeah, it is, of course, the service economy. Well done. I think the next one's the last one, so let's have it. What about this? Like with cultural diversity, this also has a spatial pattern, and this also has to be dealt with at a city level. So what am I referring to here? Oh, you guys are on fire. Yes, well done. Yeah, let's have this answer then, Jim. It is economic inequality, which we know to be a massive issue. Take the city of Los Angeles with the area of Skid Row. You wouldn't believe that you were in LA if you'd visited Skid Row. Right, on to the next activity. Okay, back to you, Suzanne.
Thank you. Right. Okay, so we're back to another 30-second challenge. So you're going to have 30 seconds to try to put into the chat box, or at home write down your answer to the following questions. So outline the process of suburbanisation. You have 30 seconds starting now. Right, time's up. Now I can see some good answers coming up there on the chat. So yeah, well done, Laurie. I can see you were the first one off the mark. So if we can have the reveal, please. So the process of suburbanisation is when people, services and employment, so that's jobs, move towards the edges of an urban area. And suburbanisation, it tells you there, sometimes results from wealthier, more aspirational residents seeking a perceived better quality of life away from the central urban area. Now, you saw before a photograph, and that was an area that was typical of the 1930s. And many of the suburbs actually show or demonstrate features typical of the time periods that they were built in. So it can often be quite easy to go to different locations in the suburbs and identify from the house styles when those houses were built. Right, on to our next 30-second challenge, please. Right, so you've got a choice in this one. So either you can write down what is deindustrialization. It's been covered a couple of times before, so you might have a good old stab at that one. Or what is decentralization? Now, we've covered aspects of that through this, but we haven't referred specifically to that word yet. Right, so if we start the 30 seconds and either write in the live chat or on your paper at home, 30 seconds to try and answer one or other of those questions. Off we go. Brilliant. Okay, really good to see some strong answers coming there in the chat. I can see Laurie again. We got there, I think, first. So if we can have the reveal, I'll talk about each one of these separately. So the first one then, deindustrialization. Now, that is actually looking at the decline in a country's traditional manufacturing industry base. Now, that can be caused by mechanization and automation, so using computers, robots, and machinery to produce instead of people. It could be a fall in demand. It could be supply issues, or it can be, and very often was, competition from abroad. So as those newly emerging economies began to develop, they competed with us for manufactured products and were able to do that much more cheaply. And deindustrialization, as I'm sure you're aware from lots of your studies in school, has had a huge impact on the character, the demographic and the socio-economic profile of many urban areas across the UK. And actually, you're also likely to have covered aspects of this through the Changing Places unit of work. And you might even have had a look at some of the past paper questions where you've looked at poetry or images of places that have suffered from deindustrialization and how that has been represented. Right, some of you did actually go for the decentralization one. And I can see some good answers again there in the chat. And this is the movement of industry and population from urban centres to those outlying areas. So that often leads to something called edge cities, and many of the functions actually moving towards the edges, very often connected by good motorways or routeways, and they become more accessible away from the traffic congestion of the inner city. Right, if we can have our next 30-second challenge. This one is outline the process of counter-urbanisation. So if you're at home, write it down. If not, you've got 30 seconds on the live chat. Go for it. Fantastic. Right, again in the live chat I can see some strong answers there, and actually quite a few of you developing and giving me more details. So this is the movement of people from urban areas into surrounding rural areas. So there can be lots of sort of negatives or push factors in cities, which mean that people prefer or aspire to live in a perhaps greener environment, to move out of the built environment. And car ownership and greater affluence means that people can commute to work from areas further away from the city. Now, as geographers, what's really important is we begin to consider what's happening now and how that might affect some of these processes. And actually, after lockdown, many estate agents have actually experienced a huge surge in demand for rural properties, as people now are often working more from home and think that they will work more from home in the future. There's actually a trend of movement out of the cities. So I think as geographers, we really need to keep our eye on some of these trends and see if they are going to be long lasting, and whether this is actually going to reshape cities. Is it going to alter some of the built environments? And really only time will tell. Right, okay, on to our, I think, next activity. I'm going to pass over to Abdurrahman.
Thanks so much, Suzanne. And just wanted to say that those of you in the live chat at the moment have been so amazing. There might not be, tens of thousands of you on there, as we'd probably expect from geography being such a great subject. But those of you in here are being absolutely amazing. So well done. Let's have a go at this, which is a connection wall. In here, you have several statements, and they all fit into 4 groups. So we're going to go through one by one, and we'll see if we can figure out each group one by one. So start thinking about what could tie 4 different boxes in here into one category. So I'll give you some time to start thinking. The first category, if I can give you a little bit of a clue, relates to something we've already spoken about this session, and it's one of the main issues that occurs in cities that has to be dealt with. But any of the categories you can do, I'm just going to give you about 45 seconds to a minute to have a look at this. That's very close, Leo. I think that is one of the categories, but you need to be a bit more specific than that. Start maybe thinking about some of the longer ones, and we'll go through the first one in a couple seconds' time. So take your time, but let me know in the chat what your thoughts are. If you're watching this on playback, obviously you've got a little bit more time to pause and really think about the 4 categories here. Yes, Mia, there is one definitely to do with economic inequality. So let's start with that. Jim, let's reveal the first category. Well done to you. Mia, it is. These are examples of economic inequality. Well done. This was a really hard one. People living in gated communities, whilst others live perhaps on the streets or in much poorer quality housing. And this is something that crosses the borders of development. This happens in HICs, like our country, as much as it does in LICs and NICs. This next problem perhaps happens more in LICs, so privatized services which only the wealthy can access, like water. Large and growing squatter settlements, again, more of an issue for LICs and NICs, and many working in poorly paid informal tertiary economy, which does cross over sometimes into HICs and NICs, but it's more something for poorly developed countries. So well done. Let's go and let's check out the next category, Jim. So the next one, these are actually then strategies to manage economic inequality. So those people who are perhaps not able to secure jobs, self-help schemes, microfinance loan schemes, site and service schemes, and urban renewal strategies will perhaps help them out. And think about this for the next two categories, which now should be a little bit easier. So do let me know in the chat. One of them is about managing a certain problem within cities, and you might be able to find out which one it is. And the other one is about how cities are sort of broken up, I guess. And you were quite close, Leo. So maybe if you're trying to rejig your wording, you'll get there. So tell me in the chat, what are the last two categories? Yes, thank you, Aman. That will be the final one. I don't want to reveal that just yet. One is definitely land use. Can we get the other one, the one with the longer writing in the boxes? What is that perhaps trying to solve? It's a very, very big issue in cities. Right, let's have it revealed then, Jim. So these are strategies to manage social segregation. Now, social segregation is a big, big issue in large cities like New York, for example, but also London and places like Detroit. And these are all strategies which might seek to ameliorate the issue and make it less serious. And then the final one, as some of you have already said, let's reveal that one, Jim. Yeah, it was land use types. All four of which you'll find in some cities happen within a walk from each other, especially in town centre mixed developments. Well done on that one. Let's move on to the next one. Right, I think this is over back to you, Suzanne.
It is indeed. Okay, so we're on 3, 2, 1. So for those of you who haven't played before, we're going to have 90 seconds to write down 3 items, 2 items and 1 item to the following things. So this is going to be based on stuff around the urban policy and regeneration in Britain since 1979, which is on the syllabus. So you've got features and or examples of urban development corporations. So 3 of those things, please. 2 ways in which urban policy and regeneration in Britain changed since 1979, and 1 recent example of an urban policy or urban regeneration that you might have studied. So I'm looking for the final blast in that live chat. And if you are watching at playback, you can pause and write down your answers or play along and see if you can do it within the 90 seconds. Off we go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Fantastic. Right, so I can see we've got a couple of answers coming in. Let's have a quick look at the answers that we've got down. Now, it could be that you have done some slightly different ones as case studies, but the feature is the urban development corporations there are property-led regeneration. So they were aimed at rejuvenating derelict areas in UK cities, and really the private sector played a huge role in their design, which makes it different from the policies which came later. Two examples, you can see there, Tyne and Weir Development Corporation. Now, they successfully created 4,550 housing units, and they developed the East Quayside in Newcastle. You may have studied that, might have been in one of your textbooks, or you could have studied the example of the London Docklands Development Corporation. And that, obviously, Canary Wharf is that iconic landmark on the London skyline, and created the new financial services sector in the UK. And I think, again, with this one, as geographers, it's really interesting times ahead in terms of what's going to happen to commercial property in these city centres, because at the moment the suggestions that less than 10% of the workforce are actually back at their desks in Canary Wharf, and most are working from home, and there's definite rumblings from London-based companies about downsizing their office space in favour of much smaller offices and hot desking. So, you know, question in the future is, will places like Canary Wharf actually weather this storm? And I think it's going to be interesting times ahead to actually watch and see what does happen with the value of commercial property in London, and will that land use in the sort of city centre around city centres around the country, will they change? It's really important very often to think about that temporal element. Some of you may have been writing some 20-mark essays and looking at the assessment objectives, and considering temporal elements and how things will change over time is really important for scoring more highly and getting into the higher level marking bands. So do consider that. Right, let's have a look at the two ways in which urban policy and regeneration in Britain changed. So you can see there, it became increasingly focused in terms of scale it addressed. So it started regional, so very large, then it went much more city-based, and then it went much more small scale to a very local scale. So the number of people affected have got much smaller, although some might argue some of those local schemes are much more effective because they take into consideration the needs of the local population that couldn't be addressed in that regional scale. The second one there, regional development agencies were abolished and local enterprise partnerships were created. Okay, and yeah, you need to consider some of those things to do with scale. So again, another AO1 for some of those 20-mark essays, thinking about how we went regional down to local. Right, and our final one, here we go. A recent example of an urban policy or regeneration. Now, you could have something different because you might have studied something different, but we can see here there were 30 local enterprise partnerships that were established in 2010, and that was actually set up by a government department, primarily to create jobs. And you can see there, successfully in Lancashire, they created 2,200 jobs and supported 600 new businesses. Right, I think that draws us to the end of this half of Contemporary Urban Environments. So thank you.
That was really good. We definitely had the elite geography team in tonight looking at the answers on the chat window. I mean, you mentioned a couple of times, Abdurrahman and Suzanne, how good the answers were. But I got a sense that maybe urban policy right at the end there is an area where perhaps some students haven't quite yet finished all their revision ahead of assessments. I don't know, but
it's a tough one. That one.
Yeah,
tough one.
Yeah, it's understandable, but at least they know what to do now, which is great.
Yeah. Really great, and many thanks to, in particular, to Abdurrahman for putting the session together with Suzanne. It's been can't wait for next week.
Looking forward to it too.
It's amazing just over the course of 30 minutes there how much specialist terminology is covered by those activities, and how much you need to know and understand, because there's a lot of terms in there which are quite confusing in the sense that they sound the same, don't they, or they're easily mixed up. So
definitely. But
fantastic stuff.
Hopefully that session has helped. And if you can watch back again if you can't remember anything.
Watch it again and again and again. Nothing else on the telly. Well, don't forget, if many thanks to all the students who joined us live. We always appreciate that. If you found the session useful, then please give us a thumbs up. We never take that for granted, but we always appreciate the thumbs up to help the YouTube algorithm, a good kind of algorithm, suggest this type of content to other A-Level geographers, maybe doing some revision using YouTube. You can watch it on replay if you go to tutor2u.net/live and then use the filter on replay to go Geography A-Level. And you'll get all 9 of the sessions that we've done so far. You can download the PowerPoints as well if you wish. And don't forget, also on there, you'll see lots of other subjects. So coming up, looking at the clock, in about 20 minutes time, the A-Level psychology team are in the house, followed by sociology, and then it's economics and business and politics tomorrow, and law. So if you've got some other subjects that you'd like to catch up on, try those as well. But nothing beats the A-Level geography sessions. The best. And I say that without any kind of bias whatsoever. Check out A-Level Business, by the way. Fantastic stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We're going to have to sign off now to allow the psychology team to get their feet under the door, under the table. So once again, we'll see you hopefully this time next week for our second session on contemporary urban environment. So for now, from Suzanne and Abdurrahman and myself, brilliant stuff.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye, everyone. Bye.